You are 25 years old, dragged onto a ship by men who plan to sell you for silver. And you start laughing. Not nervous laughter, not fear dressed up as bravado. You are laughing because you have already decided how this ends, and it isn't with your death. The men holding you don't know your name yet. In a few years, the whole Mediterranean will. Your name is Julius Caesar. The year is 75 BCE, and you are about to spend 38 days as a hostage, living like a guest at a party you are secretly planning to burn down. Here's the world you've sailed into. There is no single navy patrolling these waters, just a patchwork of city-states, client kingdoms, and Roman provinces too slow and too divided to stop anything. Pirates have filled the gap. Not the eye patch and parrot kind you're picturing. Think of them as a floating criminal economy, an entire industry built on kidnapping, ransom, and slavery, based out of a coastline called Cilicia in what's now southern Turkey. They have fleets. They have fortified harbors hidden in the coves. Some even run a kind of informal insurance system for ransom payments. This isn't chaos, it's infrastructure. And you've just sailed straight into it. These aren't small-time bandits either. Your captors run a business model that would look familiar to any modern trafficking ring. Wealthy travelers get held for ransom because a live noble is worth more than any cargo he's carrying. The poor and the unremarkable get sold straight into slavery, no ransom required. Some pirate fleets have grown bold enough to raid coastal towns in broad daylight, sailing under purple sails and gilded oars, according to the Greek biographer Plutarch, who recorded your capture in detail. Criminals dressing like royalty because nobody is strong enough to stop them. Is that arrogance? Or is it just an accurate read of how little anyone fears them? Your captors think they've landed a decent payday. They demand 20 talents of silver, roughly a small fortune, enough to set up a family for generations. You look almost offended. 20 talents? You tell them they have no idea who they've caught. You insist they ask for 50 instead. Let that sit for a second. You are negotiating your own ransom upward. Not because you're wealthy enough to pay it easily, because you understand something your captors don't yet. That the price you demand for yourself becomes the story people tell about you afterward. While your men go to raise the money, you stay on the island with your captors for over a month. And you do not act like a prisoner. You join their games. You write poems and speeches and make them sit and listen. And when they aren't impressed enough, you call them illiterate savages to their faces. You sleep when you want quiet, and you tell them flatly to shut up. And almost as a running joke, you keep telling them that once you're free, you're going to hunt them all down and crucify every single one of them. They laugh. Of course they do. It's exactly the kind of thing a captive says to feel powerful. Harmless bravado from a man with no ships, no soldiers, no leverage. Here's the part that should stop you cold. You mean every word. The moment the 50 talents are paid and you're released, you don't go home. You go straight to the nearest port and raise a private fleet on your own authority. A young man with no official command, borrowing ships and men through sheer force of personality, and you sail back to the island where you were held. Your former captors haven't moved far. They never expected their joke of a hostage to come back with a navy. Picture it. Torchlight on the water near Pharmacusa, the small island where you were kept. Weeks earlier, you sat cross-legged on this same beach, entertaining your captors, playing along, biding your time. Now you're standing on the deck of a ship you built out of nothing but nerve, watching that shoreline get surrounded. The men who once laughed at your threats are the ones being pulled from their homes in chains. You personally push the local Roman governor to have them executed. When he drags his feet, hoping to sell your captors as slaves instead and pocket the profit, you don't wait for permission. You go back a third time and have them crucified yourself. There's one more detail that tells you everything you need to know about yourself. Crucifixion is designed to be slow, public, and agonizing. You order your former captors' throats cut first, as a mercy, before they're nailed up. You keep your promise. You just make it slightly less horrific than you threatened, almost like the joke was the warning, and the follow-through was never in question.
Now here's the twist, and it's bigger than one man's revenge story.
Rome could have wiped out Mediterranean piracy decades earlier. It didn't because piracy was profitable for Rome too. Roman elites bought slaves captured by these same pirate networks. The Senate looked the other way because the supply chain fed the empire's own economy. Piracy wasn't a rogue problem Rome was fighting. It was a shadow industry Rome was quietly feeding on. It took the pirates blockading grain shipments and threatening Rome's own food supply, not the suffering of thousands of captives, not moral outrage, before the government finally acted. In 67 BCE, a general named Pompey was granted extraordinary, almost dictatorial power over the entire Mediterranean and every coast within 50 miles of it. He divided the sea into zones, coordinated fleets across the whole region at once, and in about 3 months, effectively ended organized piracy in the Mediterranean. Ancient estimates put the number of pirates captured or killed near 100,000, and close to 400 ships destroyed. 3 months. A crisis that had run for generations, gone in one coordinated season, once someone with real authority finally decided it was worth solving. So what actually changed? Not the morality of the problem, the cost of ignoring it. And that's the part that quietly reaches into your own life too. You don't usually act on a problem because it's wrong. You act on it once it becomes personally inconvenient. Rome tolerated an entire kidnapping economy for years, until it touched their bread supply. Then it took 3 months to fix what had seemed unsolvable for a lifetime. You didn't threaten those pirates out of some grand principle either. You were humiliated, and you made it personal. And that personal motivation moved faster than any institution around you. Think about the things you let slide in your own life. The slow leak, the bad habit, the arrangement you've normalized because it hasn't cost you enough yet. You're rarely waiting for a better argument. You're waiting for the moment it finally becomes unbearable. It shows up in smaller, quieter ways too. The coworker who's been cutting corners for years, tolerated right up until it finally costs someone real money. The relationship you knew wasn't working long before you actually left it. The warning signs are rarely the problem. The problem is that warning signs are cheap and consequences are expensive, and you usually only pay attention once the bill actually arrives. There's something else worth sitting with. On that island, you had no real power. No soldiers, no ships, no money of your own. What you had was total, unshakable conviction that your current position was temporary, and you acted the entire time as if the outcome was already decided. That confidence wasn't arrogance for its own sake. It was calculated patience. Play along, gather what you can, strike only once the odds have actually shifted in your favor. Most people either panic when they're powerless, or they wait passively for rescue. You did neither. You negotiated, entertained, observed, and planned your return before you'd even left. That distinction matters more than it sounds. Panic burns energy without direction. Passive waiting burns time without progress. What you did was quieter than both. You kept gathering information the whole time you looked like you were just killing hours on a beach. You learned how many guards patrolled at night. You learned which of your captors could be charmed and which couldn't. None of that required strength. It only required staying observant while everyone around you assumed you'd already given up. It's a strange thing to learn from a future dictator on a beach 2,000 years ago, but the lesson holds up. The person who seems least threatening in the room is sometimes the one who has already decided how the story ends. So picture yourself there again, 25 years old, standing on that ship, pirates all around you. You weren't laughing because you were fearless. You were laughing because you had already looked past the moment everyone else thought was the end of your story. You are 25 years old, dragged onto a ship by men who think they've caught easy silver. This time, nobody is laughing but you.